Live from the Panera Studios, it's the Reading with Robin show, brought to you each week by my friends at Panera Bread, where it's food as it should be. 100% of their food is 100% clean. I like to start the day at Panera with a steaming mug of coffee. There's nothing like that first cup. I see all the regulars. Your neighborhood Panera, it's just like Cheers. Panera is the perfect place for a business meeting, book club, or to meet up with friends over a delicious lunch. Try one of their sandwiches, soups, or salads, or you pick two. There's something for everyone at Panera. And now, enjoy the show. Last time we spoke about when we write about ourselves. And then she did. So I was so excited to see this gorgeous new book, The New Old Me, My Late Life Reinvention, Meredith Maran's latest beauty. This book it smells good, it feels good, and it is just gorgeous. I love
it too.
Right? It pops out, and it's just one of these books that has it all going on, and aptly so for such an amazingly memorable, heartfelt, funny, thoughtful, brilliant memoir. Insightful, funny, and human. You don't just want to read this book, you need to read this book, Anne Lamott, and the praise goes down the side, up the back, and through the middle from all of so many of my favorites, from Ayelet Waldman and Annabelle Gurwitch, who I had spoken to a while ago, hilarious, Kate Christensen, Meg Wolitzer, Susan Orlean. I mean, all of my favorites are wrapped around this with so much love and so much well-deserved praise for this book.
Thanks, Robin.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
That I am buying for everybody. This is one of those books that just makes you think, laugh, remember, have hope. It's just there's so much in this book, and I am thrilled to welcome you back to Reading with Robin, Meredith Maran.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. It really means a lot.
Well, your books always speak to me, your articles, whatever, you're one of these people that if you're writing something, I don't want to miss it, which is why I think when I saw this, maybe it was somebody tweeted out or something, and I think I sent you a message and I said, wait, how did I miss this?
Yeah.
You're like, don't know. I don't know how that is possible, and I am so glad that we got to have this opportunity. So you're on the East Coast now, and you've got some fun stuff going on. And tonight you're at Turn of the Corkscrew. Have you been there yet?
I haven't. I heard it's new, right?
It's new, Carol Honig's place. It's fabulous, and I'm really excited I wonder if anybody will be taping it. A little Facebook Live would be nice for the rest of us.
That's a great idea, yeah. I think they do something like that there, so we'll see.
Okay, good, because it's right in Rockville Center. So go to meredithmaran.com to see where she'll be. You've been on tour for a while, but you'll be in New York and then at Greenlight Wednesday night in conversation with Am Holmes and Julie Clam. Is that right?
Yes, there's going to be a lot of laughter that night. I have a feeling.
Oh my goodness. I've never met Am Holmes, but I'm a huge fan of Julie's, and that sounds like way too much fun in one
exactly.
borough of Brooklyn. So that's happening, and then you'll be back on the West Coast, and you've got some events going on there.
Right.
So what's this tour been like? Like the love tour, it looks like.
That's a really good way to put it. There's always two aspects to this, and one is, and the more important one is the love aspect, and it's not just others' love for my books. It's also my love for, let's start at the important place, independent bookstores, especially now. And I always make people listen to my indie bookstore spiel at the beginning of every book event. But right now, it seems so much more crucial than ever. And when I stepped inside, for example, Women and Children First in Chicago the other night, and I saw their displays of terrifyingly relevant fiction that had 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale and Fahrenheit 451 and a great selection of T-shirts and they said they can't keep 1984 in stock right now. It's always an honor to be welcomed in these stores, but right now it's like I almost have the feeling that I'm entering foxholes of the resistance, with the other.
Yes, I love the way you put that, because there's such a community around the bookstores, and those are the people who are passionate about their bookstores and really take care of the community in that way, and are brave themselves, to sort of put it right out there, like, hey, this is what's important right now, and making this collection.
Right.
Since I don't have the pleasure of being at one of your events in the near future, can you give the little spiel about bookstores? Like, I'd love to hear that. I'm sure the Reading with Robin listeners would too.
Yeah, I'll give you a live example. I walked into Women and Children First, and I said, thank you for having me. And they said, thank you for coming back. The owner of the store, I think her name is Linda, or the founder of the store, was there, even though she sold the store to the workers. She loves it so much. She's there a lot, apparently. And she said, oh, no, you've been here before. And I was really embarrassed. I was, oh, sorry. When? I'm old. What can I say? And she brought forth this customer, a regular customer, who showed up with a copy of my first grown-up book, What It's Like to Live Now, in paperback. And I had signed it for her in that store in 1996.
Wow.
And that customer is now running a little group in the bookstore for women aging gracefully or powerfully or something like that. And there she was, 20-some years later, still matronizing the bookstore and still, carrying around the books that she has bought there over the years. So I think that kind of sums it up. I know, it was so touching.
There's just nothing like that. And for people who really embody the spirit of what that means to everybody, and the stories are they're just mind-blowing, because there's such passion, and it really is a community center. And I know that for people who need that connection, that want that connection, that are looking for that connection, the things that you'll find in that space are just remarkable, and in so many ways. So you've hitting a lot of the favorites, and there's some new indies that have opened, which is, like you mentioned, Turn of the Corkscrew is pretty new, and you'll be there Tuesday night, and some of the others that people have opened. I know there are a few new ones right in Pennsylvania and Hoboken. I can't remember, but and I know we have a brand new one opening in Providence, Rhode Island, right here. It's called Riff Raff. Yeah, it's a bar bookstore, and they're opening. The opening date has been changed, as happens, but I think they're looking at April or May now. So that's something to celebrate. It's a bar and a bookstore. So we're excited about that. So people come up to you and they want to just talk about everything, I'm sure. And
one of the unexpected things that has happened that I was hoping for but not really expecting is, the book is about my quote-unquote late life reinvention, the kind of cataclysm that happened in my life at age 60. And when it was happening to me, I thought, I bet I'm not the only one. Now that we're living longer and living bigger as we age, we get sort of a new chapter at the end there. And so, I was hoping when I wrote it that this story, the fundamental story, which is, what do you do when your life goes to hell and, you're not a young kid and your resources internally may be great, but your external resources are scarily absent. I've had so many young women coming to the readings, and when I say young, I mean in their 20s and 30s, saying, I don't know why you would see this book as a book for older women, because, I'm 27 and I'm reinventing myself, or I'm wanting to understand how I'm creating my future right now. And that was my fondest dream. I sort of saw the book as in a way, a letter to my younger self and a letter to my younger sisters and daughters and granddaughters who are coming up now in this incredibly complicated time.
I'm glad you brought that up, because in reading this, and certainly you're writing this book coming at it at your age, and we're a few years apart, so I was like, she's not old at all. But I was thinking, because my daughter is 26, and I hear what these kids are going through and how they're sort of, it's not that sense of this is what I will be doing forever, whatever that is, and there's so much shifting. So this to me really is a book there's so many pearls in here. There's so many connections in just so many ways, and the humor that sort of connects it all. And just I love I love the way you write. I'm like gushing all over your book, but this totally is a book for everybody, because reinvention needs to start with invention, or people don't even know where to start in the beginning anyway.
I mean, that's fun. That's one of the funny things when this woman brought my 1996 book, What It's Like to Live Now, and she turned over the book, and on the back cover, the descriptive flap said something about, now that we're in our 40s and starting to gray at the temples, and the two of us had the best laugh, and I was realizing that this is actually something I do. I didn't even think about it that, she said, I guess we can expect another one when you're 85. I mean, every 20 years I seem to write a book, and that wasn't the first one either. My then boyfriend and I wrote a book when we were 19 about being hippies in northern New Mexico, and
so cool. I have to read that.
That was about being of a certain age and in a certain gestalt in the country, and that was in 1970. So I guess
there's a path.
There's a pattern developing here.
There is. And the thing is, whatever age we're sort of in or wherever we're at, that's the one. And you look back and think, wow, that's what I was thinking then. And it's always neat to see like common threads, like whatever is important that continues to be sort of important. But the books continue to be so relevant. And I think that's one of the things that must be, for you as a writer, so gratifying to see that they obviously hold up and so many people connect with them.
Well, thanks for saying that. Yeah, I mean, I think there has been, I have been on a mission since I was 15 years old, and I met that boyfriend on the corner outside my high school, Bronx Science, and, and he sort of introduced me to the idea that there was a whole other world out there and a whole other way to look at the world that wasn't that of my, my upper middle class New York Jewish parents, and who at the time were pretty conservative politically, because in the 60s, unlike now, the quote unquote resistance movement was in a tiny minority of the population. Now going to these women's marches and anti-Trump marches and so on, it feels like I'm in the mainstream for the first time in my life.
Right.
But the books have always been my way of addressing what's going, sort of what's happening and what's wrong with what's happening and what to do about it. That's always been my project. So, this one was sparked by my wondering, how could we have been the generation that redefined womanhood, and now those women are in our 60s and 70s, the bra burners, and what are we doing now that is either consistent with or a variation of what we were doing when we were in our teens and 20s, which was changing the world.
Right?
Yeah.
There's that, and also really sort of shining a light on that. And you mentioned your upbringing, and one of the things that I was chuckling at is, I know I need to listen more than talk, collaborate, not control, stay open to my coworkers. This was when you were at your job, coworkers' points of view. In other words, show a little respect for my fellow beings, an attitude at odds with the defensive, self-protective disdain I learned at my Jewish forebears' knees. I was cracking up. I love that.
Nothing like a little judgment. and criticism of others.
Just a little, just enough.
Yeah,
I mean,
a little.
sometimes that's just exactly what's needed. So for the listeners, and I'm on the phone with Meredith Maran, the author of The New Old Me, My Late Life. It's not so late in reinvention. I'm defensive of that. Like you're so now and so cool and all of that. And this is just a gorgeous, gorgeous book, and I'm really excited to be able to share it with Reading with Robin listeners. You can visit Meredith Maran. I love the website. It really pops. Meredith,
Hey.
You're welcome. MeredithMaran.com. You can find her on Twitter. Always love following you on Twitter, on Facebook. On Instagram, not so much, I think, right? No?
Yeah, I haven't really gone into Instagram. I'm giving myself a little break on that one.
Definitely. If I could put my vote in, I vote for more writing, less Instagram then. And we can only do so much, and there's so much to do. But talk a little bit about your story, where it started, your journey. You start the book really with the dissolving of your marriage. I mean, it's so hard to also talk to somebody about a memoir that is just so touching and that I've connected to, where it starts off obviously with so much pain and a very big move. But you can give the audience a little bit about what happened.
Yeah. Well, I was 60. I was in what was then about a 15-year marriage. I had 2 grown kids, and in one 6-month period, my best friend died of ovarian cancer, and my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and I had unscrupulous financial advisor disappear my life savings, and the worst of all was that for 3 years or so, I had been in what was once a blissful marriage and had turned into a war zone for reasons I couldn't and still don't understand. So, at that point, I got a job offer in Los Angeles. I was living in Oakland in a house I'd raised my kids in and lived in for 25 years. And I got a job offer, and there was really nothing to say at that point except yes. And so I, almost overnight, I packed up my things that would fit in my car, and it was a little car. There were not many things. I wear size 11 shoes, so I took those because they're hard to find. But
I do too, Meredith. Yet another thing we can connect on.
That's funny. That's rare.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I drove. I just drove to LA and started over. I had no money, so while I was working and saving money, I'd been a homeowner at that point for 30 years, and I had to sleep on friends' couches and some strangers' couches and save up for first and last, which was a blast from the past for me at that point in my life. And just, as I say, start from scratch, because scratch was all I had.
Which is, for somebody looking at that, thinking, well, how do you do it? How do you get through it? How do you, and working towards rebuilding like that, like you say, at that age. It's at any age, but I think there are so many people who are, sort of staying where they are, and maybe there's smaller rebuildings, or there's a fear of not to know. One of the things to me, a takeaway, and you talk about it in talking with your friends, and when you go through something, and when people are hearing you'll be okay and this will get better, if it's with a trusted friend and somebody who really has been through something, you won't be the same. You'll be different, better. Maybe it's not good, better, whatever, but that there is light, and that piece by piece, you would never believe that you could find yourself in that space. And when I was reading about one of the places that you stayed, and you're up and down on this ladder in your heels, right? Like they were doing construction in the home, and I'm picturing you. Like, do you think yourself, like, what the hell am I doing on this ladder? How did I get on this ladder?
The top of the ladder was a bed.
Exactly.
and a place I could stay with no money. So it was, I was very grateful for it. And, maximum level of difficulty has sort of been the theme song of my life. So it's the fact that I was offered a free place to live for a while, which was a very nice place to live and was 10 minutes from my job, which, in Los Angeles, that's a huge plus.
Oh, my God, absolutely.
So, So, the fact that I was doing a little gymnastics to get in and out of the house seemed minor to me, but it was very funny to my neighbors who became my friends.
I love the way you
watching me. Yeah.
I love the way you reach out to them, and of course, reading this book and on the other side of reading, and where you are and that time that it takes to sort of sit and write a book like this and have that perspective and distance. But just love the way you sent them a note and said, hey, I'd like to meet some friends here. And
yeah, it really is, and I think it's a really simple screening device, because I don't really want to be friends with anybody or close to anyone or trust anyone who can't deal with honesty, So I was sitting there feeling so humiliated and so embarrassed that I had to, post on Facebook, I'm lonely and I'm needing friends. Does anybody know anybody in LA I would like? Or in the case of the neighbors, I didn't send them a note. I actually wrote a note on paper.
Right, that's what I meant. Yeah, you wrote a handwritten. I love that. Yes. Yeah,
because they're my age, and I thought they'll relate to that, and sure enough, they did. They checked their mailbox, and there it was. Honestly, if they had been the kind of people who said, we don't want to hang around a loser like this who's writing us a note saying, desperate, lonely lesbian next door, please help,
I think that's the next title of your book.
Well, I'm not feeling too desperate or lonely.
No, it doesn't work. That's true. It doesn't work anymore, but it would have been a great title.
It is a funny title, yes. But they got the note, and they called me right away, and they were laughing. And I thought, well, they passed my first test,
Yes. I mean, to really get, when people get us, you right away, and you think, okay,
right.
If I had seen that Facebook post, I would have definitely, there are people I can think of right now, but I guess I didn't see that post. And there's nothing I like more than connecting people. It's one of my favorite things. So you started this job at Bellissima, and they had Lululemon wearing days. I was cracking up at that.
Yeah.
Talk
Easy
about
for you to laugh. You didn't have to wear
absolutely
in front of a bunch of 20-years.
I would have quit, Meredith. That would have been the end. It wouldn't have mattered at what point I was at. That would have been the deal breaker. I have a whole Lululemon rant that I could go on. But so what was it like working there?
Well, it was really horrible and really great at the same time, like much of life. I mean, it was the job I was offered. So once again, beggars.
Sure.
And so I was extremely grateful and sort of amazed after 25 years as a freelancer to have a check land in my account, whether I deserved it or not. That was sort of the opposite of the freelance life, where you don't get it, whether you deserve it or not. Chasing paychecks, being unpaid labor. But anyway, so it was really great to have the money and the benefits, and frankly, it was great to have some place to go every day that took me out of my miserable little head,
Sure.
And then it was kind of horrible too, because the people there were very nice and very fun to look at, but they were in their 20s and 30s. They were size zeros. They were. It was at the fashion business, so they're very stylish, and it's Hollywood, and I'm 60 and brokenhearted, and I'm going through a divorce, and, so, the good and the bad news was, as I write in The New Old Me, that nobody ever asked me a single question. So, I just sort of appeared there, 40 older than most of their parents, and I appear there wearing a wedding ring and sad, obviously. I was taking crying breaks in the bathroom, so I'm sure they were aware that I was, not in the happiest of states. And then over the months, the wedding ring disappeared and the red-rimmed eyes got unred-rimmed, and, I moved to a place of my own, etc. Not once did anyone comment or ask a single question. So that was the good and the bad news. It gave me a real break from what I was living with the rest of the time. And, that was kind of a new trick for me to learn to be distracted from my suffering instead of trying to, quote unquote, figure it out and get through it that way.
Which is a really interesting tool. And I know in reading the book, and I'm on the phone with Meredith Maran, we're talking about her gorgeous, and I do mean gorgeous, memoir, The New Old Me, My Late Life Reinvention. When you're a thinker and you're sort of in your head a lot, to really be able to, and I know you talk about that with one of your friends, sort of like blocking those thoughts and really sort of staying in the moment. It is a nifty little trick, and I guess it's like anything, practice with that.
Yeah.
My mother always said you can't, if you don't let a thought enter your mind, like if you sort of stop it, that was always one of her tricks. And every once in a while I try and do that, and I think of my mother all the time, but then especially. And so being distracted at work in that way, I could see where that could be, such a helpful thing at the time. Nobody asking you, but the good and the bad, like you say.
Well, when I was, before I moved to LA, one of the precipitating events was the death of my best friend who had been living with ovarian cancer for 7 years at that time. And she taught me, her death was one of the reasons that I moved. I don't think I would have left if she were still alive. And, I was part of a really wonderful circle of women who were taking care of her. But, she taught me, we hiked once or twice or three times a week, and she would tell me, when I would tell her about something that was bothering me, she would say, a lot of times when the phone rings at my house, I think, it's probably not for me, and I ignore it. And she said, maybe you could just start ignoring a few of those calls, And then I started going to Al-Anon, where they say, stay in your lane, stay on your side of the street, does that note have your name on it, like that. So, as I'm sure your mother and maybe your grandmother told you, trouble will find you. You don't have to chase it,
Right. You don't have to go looking for anything extra.
No. And I have since found that doing nothing is often not only a viable coping strategy, but the best coping strategy. That's
These are
the
things.
One for me.
Yeah, then that's the joy of figuring out that still, at all ages, we can still keep learning these things, and it's just this huge aha moment of doing nothing is doing something, and maybe that's the best thing to do at the moment. But your friend, and I'm so sorry for your loss. That's one of the things in reading that, and to have a friend like those kinds of friends, it's just awful. There's so much loss, and you also say in the book, as we get older, that also sort of comes with the territory. And
it's the AARP checklist, That's why when people say, "Oh, you poor thing, you went through so much." Well, yes,
luckily,
did, and it's age appropriate, It kind of comes with the package,
Right, and that's what I kind of say sometimes. Well, luckily, because what's the alternative, really? And
exactly.
And you do sort of take something from every experience, and I think often what it is giving back to somebody who is in that situation and thinks this will never pass, and I will never take a deep breath again, and I will never, and it may not be the same deep breath, but it will be a deep breath.
Right.
And so many things that spoke so loudly to me in The New Old Me, and it's Meredith Maran's book that not only looks gorgeous, you just want to touch this book. It feels so beautiful.
I'm so glad you feel that way. I have to say, of all, this is my 14th book. Of all of them, this one, the object of this book, the designer obviously gave it so much love. It is I love the look and the touch of this book, and I'm glad to hear you. I don't know if you looked inside if you take the jacket off, the hardcover on the inside has MM stamped on the front cover, which I've never seen before. And
I saw that.
Yeah, it was such
Miss
a
Meredith,
sweet
I
little
take the
gift.
books apart. I smell them. I take the jackets off. I examine. No, it's got MM stamped on the front. It's gorgeous, and it's just the paper just has such a feel to it. And when you're such a book nerd as am I, every little detail stands out, and it really. I'm just so excited to share with the Reading with Robin audience your book, your story, and in everything that you're doing. And visit meredithmaran.com. Find her on Facebook, on Twitter. You can find her in New York this week and then back on the West Coast, but you can go to the events section at meredithmaran.com. I can only imagine how fabulous the conversations. And before I let you go, oh my God, Kenny Loggins, what a story that was.
Yeah, life in LA, you just never know what celebrity's life is going to be somehow entwined with yours. Yes, but he's a real sweetheart, and he was such a big part of my early healing when I got to LA, just through a chance encounter. It was really great.
I was like pinching myself for yourself, just reading.
I know.
Just reading that. I'm like, oh, okay, so she's in the car with Kenny Loggins. They're going to get a meal with the dog. Anytime there's a dog involved, it's a happy day. So I was just blown away by that. And another pearl here, you're not too old for anything, emphasizing the positive while lying just a little bit. And sometimes we got to just do that. And what are you reading? What are you loving? What do you want to recommend to readers?
Well, right now I am reading a book I hope to be able to review. I do a lot of book reviews too, as you know. This book it's called Pages for Her. It's by Sylvia Brownrigg. It's sort of a sequel to a much earlier book, Pages for You. And it's published by Counterpoint, who also publishes my fiction. I love Counterpoint.
Yes,
and I'm taking it with me everywhere. It's a heavy, deliciously long novel that I'm just enjoying so much.
Heavy, deliciously long. I'm writing it down. I love your reviews. Meredith writes reviews for People magazine, and I'm sure others, but I always, Meredith and I have spoken about this, but when I get my people and I see that you've reviewed a book, I'm like, and always love them. I've never seen one of yours where I'm like, oh, she's a little bit, I don't know what she got that one from. I just, so in line with what you enjoy reading. So Pages for Her, and I'm writing that one down. So thank you. I'm putting that one on the list.
Good idea.
You know how the list goes.
Yeah.
I know, right there. Well, I don't want to miss anything. I mean, it's impossible to get it all in, but I want to know that it's there just in case.
Of course.
Thank you for sharing that, and I will be sharing The New Old Me, My Late Life Reinvention by Meredith Maran. It's gorgeous. Do not miss this book, and go see her if you can in New York and then back on the West Coast, and you can find it all at meredithmaran.com. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Robin. It's always a great joy to talk to you.